Are we going? We are live. All right. So thank you, everyone, for coming. I know we're a little late, so sorry about that. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Welcome to Sens Talk. My name is Brandon. I'm your host. Before we get started, please follow us on Twitter at @SensTalk_. As well, please check out Colin at Cudmore. What's your Twitter again, Colin?
At Cudmore Colin. That's where you can find me.
Perfect. And he does great analysis on SB Nation Silver 7 Cents covering the Ottawa Senators. If you haven't, please check out, even though it's after the draft, his draft prep article. It was amazing. It really got me because obviously, like most of us, Sens fans, we don't exactly know the prospects. So links and articles like that really do help us out. So once again, thank you, Colin, for that. And thanks for joining us. So firstly, let's go get into the prospects. So with the first pick, the Senators had Columbus's pick, 19th overall. They took defenseman Lassie Thompson for Kelowna. This one seemed like a reach for a lot of people. I think it's a nice pick, but what do you think on that one, Colin?
I mean, yeah, it was definitely a reach. I mean, there's lots of pros and cons to Lassie Thompson. I think this is probably gonna be a recurring theme this episode, but I think we need to make the distinction between liking a pick and liking a player. And Lassie Thompson is a player that I definitely like. He has some upside. He has an amazing shot. He even has some defensive traits where, especially with his gap control, that he can definitely shut down some of the opposition. So he's a great skater as well. He has some upside, but again, I like the player Lassie Thompson. He might even have been available at 32, though. That's the thing, and it was definitely a reach. And for that reason, I definitely did not like the pick. And especially, we always have to take in context when we're looking at these draft picks and making these assessments. And the talent that they left on the board is kind of mind-boggling, and not only for the Sens but other teams too that ended up later passing on the players. But I mean, Ottawa was, I think, maybe the first team that I think really took a big reach past that. I guess top maybe 25 players, I guess. So
or maybe like with Detroit, that was Sater.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, just talking about like this range specifically, I mean, you had guys like Arthur Kaliev and Bobby Brink and Phil Tomasino. And even if you're looking at just defensemen, there's guys like Ville Heinola and Tobias Bjornfot, both of whom I'm much higher on than Bjornfot. I think they definitely have even more upside. And even though they're left shot, I mean, they're definitely like quite valuable players. And I think someone like Brink or Tomasino would have been incredible for Ottawa. And even, I mean,
I think overall, with Ottawa having the first pick in the second round, Ottawa could take a defenseman in the first round. I think their original play was Thomas Harley. Like in the draft video they uploaded on Twitter and on YouTube, the height and the weight matched Thomas Harley. So when he got selected a pick or two before him, I think they panicked and they took the next guy on their boards, which I guess was Lassie Thompson, who I assume would be second round. But yes, they should have taken Bobby Brink or Kaliev or one of these great prospects available. But then they were still available going to day number 2, and they screwed that up. The guy they took in the second round, he looks okay, Shane Pinto, Tri-City. He had a decent season last year, but with the talent that was available, I'm talking Kaliev, 50-goal scorer, 17 years old. I'm talking Bobby Brink, one of the highest goal projected players in this draft, potentially in the NHL. They had some quality players on the available. And if they wanted to take Shane Pinto, who is nowhere near projected to be 32nd overall, they could have went down, acquire more assets, which they didn't. The Senators have no right wing prospect depth, and they didn't get any right wings in this draft, which is mind boggling to me. But what do you think of that second round pick?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned the expected range that I'd posted, and I was following along this with very closely over the draft. And yeah, the Sens reached on a lot of players. Lassie Thompson, I projected to be, or I didn't project, just to be clear. This was a consolidated ranking of 60 different scouting sources that I collected. And Lassie Thompson was projected to go between 31st and 48th. And Shane Pinto was projected to go between 43rd and 85th.
Close to 32.
Again, it's a differentiation between liking the player and liking the pick. I like Shane Pinto. I like Shane Pinto as a player. He's a good prospect.
He's gonna be okay, yeah.
I mean, I haven't done exactly a whole lot of research. I didn't look into him too much because I didn't think he'd be in the Sens range. But I mean, he was point per game in the USHL. He just doesn't have as high of an offensive ceiling. But again, like as you mentioned, they left so much talent on the board.
Yeah. And it goes without saying, of course, though, that nothing against the players they drafted. I'm sure they're going to be good players. It's just, I think what some people on Twitter when I was tweeting, some people are getting mixed up with the message they're trying to say. The message is the players they selected, they might be okay, but they're
Oh, hello.
One of these guys trade them, don't reach so asset management, and that's what this management has done all year with the Mike Hoffman situation. They knew about that since April, which was around February, April, right around the trade deadline. So if they knew about that situation, he should have been gone first thing and acquired like Robert Thomas or something from the Blues. Instead, we get Mikko Bodker, who plays like 20 games. So just another example of awful asset management. But speaking, in my opinion, Shane Pinto. Yeah, I read up on him. Seems like a nice two-way center, but once again, the Sanders need right-wing depth and right back-to-back picks. Kaliev, Brink, really from the Flyers and Kings.
Oh yeah,
that's gonna be another Brian Lee situation.
That's gonna look ugly. That's gonna look very ugly in the future. And I mean, you mentioned drafting for need, and maybe we differ on this opinion, but I really don't think drafting for need is something that needs to be done like at all.
The best player.
Draft the best player.
Yeah.
And
trade honestly, the guys you don't need. You draft the best player.
I feel like this applied more even to Lassie Thompson, who's a right shot defenseman, which is I think their biggest like need and prospects. And of course, I say need is in like they're pretty solid everywhere, I'd say, but that's their weakest position. Lassie Thompson, that was definitely a pick for need. I think there's set. I think if Mort Seider fell, which I mean, of course, it didn't end up happening at all. But if he was still there, I feel like they would have targeted him too. Shane Pinto, you're right. He's two-way center. He's going to be at University of North Dakota next season with Tyconic and Jacob Bernard Docker. I'm sure that's just a team that they trust, and more to how other teams trust the London Knights to develop the prospects. Yeah. But it's cool to see them develop together. But again, it shouldn't be like a breaker on why you should.
It should. Once we go down here, firstly, the next pick in the second round, 37th overall, the Sanders traded with Carolina to get this pick. I believe they traded like a third rounder and their 44th overall selection in the second round. The draft, after signing Dacourt, after signing Hogberg, after signing Nilsson, having Anderson for another year, you have Gustafsson in the pipeline. You have Mandolese. They drafted another goalie. They draft 37th overall Matt Sogard, goalie from Medicine Hat in the WHL. This kid looks great, 921 save percentage, 264 goals against average in the WHL. He's 18, he's 190 pounds, and here's the knack. He's 6'8". He is very, very big. But once again, this kid, I think in my opinion, this is probably one of our best goalie prospects we've had in a while. This kid looks great. But however, once again, always draft the best player available. But the talent still available, like Hollander, the German player, there's still great talent available for positional needs still. They haven't drafted a right wing, and you don't need a goalie. I don't know where in a year, I know Anderson's gone, but I don't know where everyone's going to go. And you traded up for this too? Like, I don't know. What's your opinion on this? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Oh, I have plenty of reservations about this pick. First of all, as you mentioned, they traded up. And you look at the two guys Carolina took. They took Jamison Rees, who's a great player in his own right, and Tony Honka, who's a player I would have honestly considered for the first round. Maybe not taking him there because I think it's predictable that he fell this far. But Carolina did this with a couple times, and they got so many assets for it. And mathematically, trading up it rarely works out. And I think Ottawa is really demonstrated a key example of this. But Petr Kochetkov was taking the pick before, another great goalie. Matt Sogard. He put up some great numbers in the WHL, but he's 6'8", and that helps a lot. And whether that's going to help him reach NHL levels, where you really need to be an athletic goalie. You can't really be so reliant on height anymore to put up those great numbers. So, we'll see how he pans out. Of course, I'd say that Dacourt, the way he performed last season, is just it already puts him in such a high level for goalie prospects, and Gustafsson is kind of there as well. So they have these four prospects, bring in Hogberg as well, and I feel like they're all kind of in a similar range of their potential upside. But again, goalies are hard to project, and I guess that brings me to my other big reservations that you just shouldn't be picking goalies this high.
No, unless it's like a guy like Spencer Knight, I got in the first round, like a team like Florida, I get it, but unless it's like a home run guy for sure, the goalie shouldn't be selected till the third, fourth round, in my opinion. Definitely never this early.
Yeah,
I hope Matt Sogard has a great career. Don't get me wrong. I hope he has a great career. I hope all the prospects we're talking about today have good careers. However, just at the moment, with the situation with Ottawa, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and goalies are the type of position where I wouldn't even bother drafting him until like the 7th round. I go with that extreme, just because I think it's more, they're so hard to project that like you're better off just finding a goalie in the market and signing them and hoping he performs well. And that'll be the best bet. And even if you're taking a flyer in the 7th round, I haven't been such a big fan of Ottawa's picks and guys like Jordan Hollett, who actually played with Matt Sogard last year, and Kevin Mendelez. These are all guys who put up like just middling numbers in the CHL. So take Dustin Wolf. He dropped in the 7th round. That's the perfect guy to take a flyer on. I think it was the Flames.
That's what they did with Mendelez last year, though. But yeah, I get what you mean. But going forward with what you're saying about the Sogard pick, we're approaching another situation with Robin Lehner, Craig Anderson, and Ben Bishop, where if you draft a right-handed or a left-handed shot defenseman, you never could have enough defensemen, because if they're really good, you can always trade another one and make space for him. With a goalie, you don't know. There's 2 spots. There's not 6. There's 2 spots. So you really have to. It's up in the air. Like with Ottawa, they clearly picked the wrong one. Well, Leonard, he had a great year, but before then, it's still, in my opinion, it was a great trade to trade Leonard, get a 1st round, and get that salary off. So that was a good trade by the late Brian Murray. But getting rid of Ben Bishop for AHL or Corey Conacher, former 30-goal scorer, which was a gamble. We all knew they wanted to take Anderson and Leonard. And we're approaching that situation again. I'm telling you, in the next 2-3 years, they're going to have to pick between Decord, Mendelez, Gustafsson, Sogard, etc. They're going to have to pick between these guys. There's not going to be enough spots for everyone, and that could bite them in the ass again.
Oh, totally, yeah. And I mean, it's a good problem to have. Don't get me wrong. It's nice to have these goalie prospects to work with, but again, it's unlikely that every single one of them is going to pan out, even though that's how it turned out with, I guess, Leonard and Bishop and Anderson. I mean, goalies are so hard to project. I mean, Sogard's only 18, and yeah, for sure.
Speaking of 18, the Senators this year drafted an average age of 19.4 years old, which is the oldest of all the 31 teams in the National Hockey League. Well, this brings us to the 4th round, where the Senators drafted 94th overall Victor Lodin, a 20-year-old coming out of Årebo, Sweden. Victor Lodin, a center, not a right wing, of course. 20, he's 6'1", weighs 190 pounds. He played 41 games in the top league in Sweden, the SHL, and he put up 5 points. This pick infuriated me. I just don't get it. He's 20 years old. He can't even put up big numbers. He may be able to be a good AHL player from what I'm looking like. If he can't put up points at 20 years old, he's getting drafted in the 4th round. If you like this guy wasn't on anyone's radar. So why are you taking him in the 4th round? Take him in the 7th round latest. If not, sign him as a free agent or invite him to training camp. This pick just baffles me.
I mean, it beats me. I mean, the only reason I think they took them is because they're one of their European scouts, Anders Osberg, used to he used to work for Årebo, which is the team that Lodin plays for. And it looks like they scouted Årebo a lot because they also signed Nick Ebert, who played for them last season. But I mean, it's hard not to trash this pick even more. There's there's great players available. It's probably the Sens have had a fair amount of.
Can I read you what the scout Mikko Ruutu says?
Yeah.
Let's see what he says, because he watches kid a lot. He knows more than us, obviously. He says he's a late bloomer, and we've been watching him for a couple of years, so I don't know what's impressive about this year. And he took a big step forward this year. He got stronger and faster, so that's the reason. You saw the talent there, but you weren't sure how far it would go. Now it looks like he's going to be a pretty good player one day. He's a mix of skill and a power forward. He's a speedy winger. He's strong at the pro level. I don't know if I could agree with that, because the points don't show that. I haven't seen anything to show otherwise that he's a 3rd, 4th liner on the SHL big team. So
yeah, I mean, I haven't watched Victor Lodin personally, so I can't say whether he's wrong on that or not.
I agree.
But it just seems like this happens with lots of NHL teams, and Ottawa was no exception to this. But their scouts get focused; they get focused on certain players, and then they don't really assess what the whole scope is on the rest of the league. And then they become so infatuated with this one player that they need to take him. And I feel like Victor Lodin is a perfect example of that, where nobody was going to draft him.
Yeah,
he was off everybody's radar. Only Ottawa.
Exactly true. By the training camp or something, or sign as a free agent.
Exactly. He's the perfect guy to sign as a Euro free agent, waiting after the draft. Spending a 4th round pick on him, I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of I remember Todd Burgess. Remember in 2016?
That won the last 2 years.
that one was already pretty low, and I mean, of course, he got pretty heavily injured after that, so it's hard to
that's true.
Blame it fully on that. But I mean, that was already an extreme reach before that. where like nobody thought that like he wasn't expected to be taken either of that draft, and then the Sens took him as an overager. But yeah, keep in mind that this is the first European pick that they've made in 3 years. It's 2016. Yeah. So
that was Lassie Thompson. When that happened, I'm like, no way, somebody not from America. Wow, I guess they expanded their scouting by one guy or something like.
But yeah, he's playing in the WHL, so.
Yeah, but that's true. You know what I mean, like the nationality.
Oh, of course, yeah. But
that's what I meant. But yeah.
But yeah, it's they only have 3 guys scouting Europe, and that's like nothing. You can't cover all of Europe. There's over a dozen leagues worth watching for these young guys, and I mean,
once again, I need to mention the fact that the Sens have one of the best scouting teams. They're one of the best amateur scouting teams in the pro scouting. No, amateur scouting, yes. They year after year they've been able to turn out great talent, especially late in the rounds, because they've been mediocre for the last 10 years, minus 2017, of course. So the late round picks have really kept them in the playoff hunt during these years, because we're not big spenders in free agency, as we all know. However, this draft really is an eye opener, and I hope we're all wrong, but like I don't know how you can defend these selections. The next pick though for Ottawa was in the 5th round, 125th overall. Another overager, 20 years old, Mark Castle, like a center from Calgary of the WHL. They guess they like players from the WHL. He scored 47 goals, had 30 assists for 77 points, 122 penalty minutes. Great character guy, I'm sure. Pierre Dorian likes that. He's 6'4", he weighs 230 pounds, so a big guy. I'm sure this kid makes sense. At least he put the points up, unlike Loudon. But I'm sure he'll be in the AHL next year, or because he's an overager now, and hopefully he'll be able to do something there.
Well, he's a double overager, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a big difference.
21. And OHL, I don't know WHL, but I know OHL. 21 is the last year you can play. Like Jacob Middleton, last selection by Los Angeles a few years ago. Former Ottawa 67. He was 21 before he went on to sign with Los Angeles and eventually with San Jose.
Oh, I know. I mean, in the sense that like he was passed over in the draft twice.
Twice. Yes, correct.
So he's double overager in that sense, and so he's in the same boat as Brett Weason in that regard. They're double overagers. So, I mean, 77 points in 66 games, 122 penalty minutes. Yeah, you mentioned he was an extremely safe pick. That's the thing, is that when you're 20-year-old playing against these guys, you're expected to be putting up these types of numbers. And I mean, Kostwick did that, but and he captained the team of the Calgary Hitmen. But I mean, again, there's no upside there. He doesn't have the offensive ceiling that there are so many other players available who we could have gone for, like Marcus Kalyankelli or there's a whole slew of guys who went like shortly after. I think Jordan Spence was still on the board at that time too.
One thing I could say about this guy though is I can see this guy. He has the height and he has the weight and height to be an NHL or 3rd, 4th line checking forward. And in the 5th round, if a 5th rounder pans out to be an NHLer, I consider that a success. Obviously you want every pick to be a Hall of Famer, but if you got a guy in the 5th round to be a NHL player, I think that's good. However, you look at the first 3 picks they had, and like in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, I don't know if there's too many where you can like take a swing at a home run. I think there's more like, let's take this guy. We like this guy. We don't know much about him, but we like him. However, in the first earlier rounds, the hype is there. You know what I mean? And that's where you should be taking the home runs, in my opinion, because the talent, you need to hit the home runs there. So you got to swing, and you better hope you hit it, because Cali have a 50-year-old at 17. That's a pitch I'd be swinging at, and I don't know why Ottawa didn't twice. But
yeah, I think we have a slight disagreement here, just because I think that even when you're getting into later rounds, picking players that you think were more likely to become NHLers. That's not a draft strategy I want to be following.
I agree. I slightly agree. What I just meant is, if I was a GM, obviously every pick you want, to be a home run. But of course, I don't know as much as the draft as you. So obviously you would know more. However, I just think if you have the goal is obviously to get an effective NHL in every pick. But I think if you get a guy in the 5th round who you think will be an NHLer in the next few years, I think that is always a good thing to have. However, I agree with you. You always should go for the higher value than safer pick. I hate safe picks, but if it's in the 5th round and you think this guy could be for sure will be an NHLer, I think you got to go with that. However, I don't really know what the crop of talent was around him. So I'm okay with this pick. However, I knew more about the second and third rounders with who was available, and I assume you knew more about the fifth. Obviously, you know more about the fifth round than me. So yeah, if there was higher talent or higher chances of talent available, then of course. But from what I know, I don't know that much. So I'm going to assume that it's not a bad pick. But
the way I look at the draft is just a big whole bunch of risk assessments. And the Sens were extremely risk averse in their picks this year, especially with guys like Shane Pinto and Mark Kastelik. It's another one. If these guys are going to turn out to be replacement players, then what's the point? You can get those guys in free agency. Although it may be different just because players don't want to sign there, or whatever. No. But I mean, those aren't the type of players you want to be going for. You want to have you want to take the player who has the chance to go above that, and even if he doesn't, then you know that you actually at least had that opportunity using the information available. That you know that player has the ability and the potential to go above someone who go above someone who you can just snag in free agency.
Yeah.
And the thing is that this is why I think Ottawa did so well in the past in their drafting, is because they took swings on guys like these, like Ryan Dzingel, even more recently, like Drake Batherson, even.
Thomas Chabot was a swing. Everyone wanted Travis Konecny, including me, and we drafted Chabot. I'm like, who? And Colin White too, both swings. Colin White, actually, let's talk about Colin White for a second. That guy was like in the 20th round, 20th like overall area, and that guy was supposed to be top 5-10, but he had injury concerns. That is what I want Ottawa to be doing, like with Kaliev instead of Pinto and stuff. There's a lack of concern with Kaliev for his motivation. However, the talent is there. He can always work with a guy's motivation. And same with Colin White, the talent's there, just the injury concerns. Those are the type of picks I would be going for. The value is so high there, you got to go for it. It doesn't matter. It's not you got to go for it.
Yeah, I think we agree on that. I did my draft coverage this year at Silver 7. I do it every year with Ari, who's an amazing writer as well. And we like to write a post every year just talking about our draft strategy. And this is what I mean when I talk about being risk averse and why the Sens are doing that. It's because they're taking the way I like to do is I like to try and separate the different types of skill sets. There's the skill sets that are kind of ingrained in a player. Like you aren't going to be changing much in that. And I feel like that's a lot of offense. You talk about your vision, you talk about your passing ability, you talk about just the hockey sense that the player possesses. Those are the players you want to be going for, because that's not going to change. And you can learn things like defense. You can learn things like physicality. You can get stronger in the gym. Motivation, I think, is something that I've been a bit more lenient on recently, just because that there are definitely players who are more motivated than others. But but of course, you think of guys like Antoni Honka, who has incredible offense, first round level offensive player. The lack of defense. Was really what sunk him in this year's draft. But I mean, players can grow from that. Players can learn to play defense. They can play within the coach's system. But whereas offense, like there's only a certain amount you can do to improve your shot, or to improve your passing ability, or to improve your vision or your creativity with the puck and ability to make plays. Those are the players you need to be going for. And I mean, going back to guys, I'm looking up and down the Sens board, and I mean, Lassie Thompson is the only one who really has that type of upside that you really want to bet on. And I mean, we're on Mark Kastelik right now, and I don't see that in Mark Kastelik. He was definitely the more defensive, character-driven guy, which is really just a term GMs like to throw around for people who are captaining and leading teams. So, which I mean does have value, but again, those aren't the things you want to be looking for at the draft table.
You can't teach, you can't teach skill. You're born and you develop the skill. What you can teach is motivation and leadership. And I don't understand when going back with Kaliev, because I've seen GMs, I've seen analysts, they say a lack of motivation, this and that. You can work with him to get his interest and his motivation right. Work with him. The talent is there. I don't know. I'm not a GM, but I don't know what's unattractive about a 50-goal scorer with a lack of motivation. He's 17. A lot of 17-year-olds don't have motivation. That's a normal thing when you're a teenager. You work with him, you develop with him until he's matured enough. I don't understand hockey in GMs in general. This stuff, like it just doesn't make sense.
Talk about a lack of confidence in your training and development staff and your coaches.
Yeah, honestly,
I mean, there's always a certain extent that falls on the player. But you look at, if you want to talk about Kali specifically, you aren't going to score 50 goals without some kind of motivation. You have to. You aren't just going to go out on the ice, just kind of meander around without motivation and put 50 goals. That's it kind of boggles my mind how often these types of just catchphrases just get thrown around without any meaning. And I don't know, maybe there's something else in the interviews that came up. I don't know, but
there's more behind the scenes that we don't know, of course. However, from what we see, questionable.
Yeah.
We move on now to the seventh round. Pardon me, not six.
Yeah,
seventh round, 187th overall. Maxence Gounet, a defenseman. He's 18 years old, 6'1", 181 pounds, pardon me, not points. He had 32 points, 8 goals, 24 apples in 68 games with Val-d'Or of the QMJHL. Saying he moves the puck well, a good skater. What do you think about this one, Colin?
I mean, I honestly don't know too much about him. I just know he's much less of a reach than many of the other players they took. Even guys like Kastelik and Sogard and Pinto and even Thompson. I had Maxence Gounet projected between 100th and 169th. So and Ottawa took him above that. Of course, based on the model, if you figure out kind of the intricacies, it's a bit less of a steal than it seems. But it's another right shot defenseman, which I guess is more drafting for need. He's lauded for his two-way play, which I guess again makes him a safer pick because you kind of intertwine those things with you looking for the high offensive upside. But it's the pick I mind the least in this draft, which I think honestly, is saying a lot because it was 7th round, and I think it speaks volumes to just how poorly they did in their first 5 picks or 6. Yeah.
I think with this draft, I think I like Lassie Thompson. I think he could have been drafted a little lower, but I like him. I like Sogard. I like goalies, and I think he looks good. However, it just doesn't make sense for Ottawa to have him, but I think he's good. It could be a good. Now we can potentially use one of our other prospect goalies for a trade chip to get what we need. As an example, I'm just saying potentially Sogard himself. But overall, this draft just left me in confusion. I give this I would rate this draft like a D plus, D minus, and F. Like it's just. What would you rate it? It's just not right now. We'll see in a few years, but right now, not looking great. But
I give it an F for sure.
Yeah,
that's an easy that's easy for me to make. It's people will look at this draft. I've been getting this a lot. Just in my Twitter mentions and stuff. But you don't need to wait 3-4 years on this because draft is a decision making process, and GMs have to assess this type of risk. And I mean, you can make the argument that these teams and their scouting staffs know more than us in the public. But at the same time, if you look back at the results, the public can consistently outperform these GMs. I don't know if you've heard of I think it was Jim Benning versus a potato article. It's basically if you draft it's a theory that if you draft the highest scoring CHL forward available, then you will outperform like every GM. It was tested on Jim Benning, and it worked. It definitely overperformed Jim Benning. I did this a couple years ago for the Sens' recent draft history, and of course, it really overperformed the Sens as well. So it's a really bad draft. It's not hard to outperform these teams, which is pretty crazy considering the amount of resources they have. They should be
maybe not Ottawa. Maybe not Ottawa, but majority of the teams.
Definitely Ottawa. I
think you can potentially outperform Ottawa.
I mean,
that's not a knock on them. It's just
I think it is a knock on them. They aren't incorporating data. They have no data analysts working on their draft right now.
Do they not have advanced analytics?
Those guys work with the coaches. There's
nothing in upper management.
They have 2 guys, but they work primarily on pro scouting and directly.
I'm not good at that with Cody Ceci still here.
I mean, a bit deeper on that. I mean, it's one thing to have analysts, another thing to use them, and I guess the Sens don't really use them all that much, anyways. But
Speaking of Cody Ceci, though, let's talk about trades. So, firstly, I tweeted this out. This just to get this quickly in here. I spoke about Patrick Marleau when he was traded to Carolina, salary dump. Now, some people mentioned in my tweet that Leafs Twitter firstly got on my tweet, so that was a little scary. They were all mad at me, but just kidding. It's good Leafs. However, I tend to agree with some of these Leafs fans that were saying probably Kyle Dubas didn't even want to trade to Ottawa give them a first rounder. However, this is still Ottawa, and I personally, in my assumption with what we've seen, I just assume Eugene Melnyk said no to acquiring that money, and he probably wants to have David Clarkson's salary or Pavel Datsuk's salary, where he doesn't have to pay it. The insurance pays for it. It goes on the salary cap anyway. I think that's what happened. But I don't know. This is something like this is something Ottawa needed to be. They needed to be on this draft, acquire assets for these type of guys who are not playing. You need to get over the cap floor anyway for a couple years. It doesn't matter. And they didn't do anything like that. And Ben Harper, they were supposed to trade too. Didn't trade him. Now I don't know what they're gonna do. They need to get. They're 13 away from the cap floor. Hopefully they'll sign Jason Spezza. But what do you think Ottawa should have done here involving trade?
I mean, obviously they should have targeted these cap dump players. That's the obvious thing to do, of course. But I mean, we always need to keep in mind that Ottawa is a very budget strapped team, to the core. Like they've been cutting as much as possible. The thing is, I think if we're just talking about meeting the cap floor, I think that it's a bit more overstated an issue now that we actually know the cap numbers. Ottawa's only 11.5 away now, and if they're going to sign Cody Ceci, if they're going to sign Colin White, you add in Christian Wynn in there, maybe he gets. I don't know, 1.52 million, maybe less. I don't know, but that brings them awfully close. And then they're having talks with Brian Gibbons and who's the other one? Oscar Lindbergh too. That's going to bring them above the cap floor pretty comfortably. Yeah. But of course,
they have holes.
There's the cap ceiling, and
they have a lot of space between them and the cap ceiling.
For sure,
25 million to be exact. So
it's wild. And ideally. We always talk about what the Sens should do ideally, but it
doesn't matter until
it's kind of like realistically we have to roll these out because it's not going to change under Eugene Melnyk. And I mean, I've made my thoughts pretty clear on this, but yeah, Melnyk is Melnyk is Melnyk.
Yeah, well, I don't want to turn this into that kind of conversation, but I think we both can agree. I think NHL hockey fans can agree that when you have an owner who is biting on. Screwing over the fan base, and you have a GM who is a puppet who will do whatever the owner says. You shouldn't have. I don't know how you can have any optimism going forward. Because yes, I love Brady Tkachuk, I love Colin White, I love Tom Chabot, Austin Batcho, great kid. However, if Melnyk's here in 6-7 years, these kids are gone. It's gonna be the same thing with Carlson. It's gonna be the same thing with Mark Stone. It's gonna be the same thing with Ryan Dzingel. Why should we just expect? Why should we care if this could be the continuing cycle? We're the farm team for the whole NHL, and I'm praying in the next 6-7 years Melnyk sells, or else these guys are going to probably be traded too.
I mean, if you want me to elaborate on that, I mean, Melnyk's been hanging on by a string for a long time. Yeah. If you look at the NHL's increase in value and look at the Sens kind of operating income and their revenue, it's kind of really broken off in these last 4 or 5 years or so. So Melnyk is struggling financially, and if you want to talk about a potential sale. The only two ways that he's going to sell is if the Board of Governors forces him, or if his creditors force him. Yeah. And you look at this entire situation around the Sens, and you look at what those parties' motivations are. Their motivations are, especially for the Board of Governors and Gary Bettman, his primary motivation is to make sure NHL teams' values continue to rise in NHL, and Ottawa's has definitely been stalling.
Yeah, and his last few years for sure. Yeah.
And his creditors want Melnyk to pay back money, and he isn't doing that either. He's just going to keep refinancing his loans, and especially with the Will Breton situation, that was Melnyk,
confirming what you're saying. It's confirming
that was Melnyk hurting his team's value. He was passing up an opportunity to increase his team's value by a lot. That's a massive project, and he messed it up. And I'm sure both his creditors and the league. He's probably not in their favor right now. So again, it's felt like he's been dangling by a string for years now. So it's just a matter of when he finally gives in. So
my concern though is if this is a Jeffrey Loria situation where he just doesn't care and he wants the team to move, and once he moves, he can sell. I think that might. I personally hate when people say Ottawa's going to move. I don't think Ottawa moves. It's the capital of the country. The uproar would be insane. There's no way they're moving. However, if something doesn't change in the next 5-10 years, to ask me in 10 years if Melnyk's still the owner, my opinion might change on that. So we'll see. But right now, Ottawa won't be moving, in my opinion. But I do have that concern in the back of my mind. I do.
Don't make an opinion. Ottawa is not moving. Period. Bettman has been forward and stating that. if you look at the NHL's constitution, it would be breaking it will violate the constitution.
They've been a viable market for years. So
Ottawa is a viable market. They are proven to be a viable market unless they do some legal gymnastics, which are not going to happen. So wipe any of that discussion from the internet because Ottawa is not moving.
I don't think Ottawa's moving. I just mean like in the next 10 years, if we're still on this path and Melnyk hasn't been forced to sell.
Nope. Still not going to happen.
I think Melnyk sells in the next 5 years. That's my opinion. But we'll see. Because I don't know how he can hang on any longer. And LeBreton will be finalized in the next 5 years, in my opinion. And I think the Senators will be moving there. I think it will just be without Eugene Melnyk. But we'll see. It's
a matter if and not when.
Exactly. I agree. I don't see how Melnyk has majority interest of this team for another 5 years. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
Yep.
I don't see it. Especially with no one showing up because they're protesting him. Hey, come on. It's not like Sens fans don't want to go to games. It's more they have apathy towards the team because the owner is not going to spend money, and if you don't spend money, they have no hope of having a successful team. So once he sells, I'm telling you, once this team, it's gonna be like we won a Stanley Cup. It's gonna be like the franchise just came right back. It's gonna be like the Senators were reborn when he sells.
Party on Elgin Street.
It's gonna be a great optimism towards the team.
Party on Elgin Street. As soon as Melnyk sells.
Oh yeah, hopefully the construction's done. Yeah.
Fair enough.
But besides that, thank you everyone for joining in. So before we wrap this up, Colin, why don't you tell everyone where they can find your stuff and where they can follow you, etc.
Yeah, well, you can follow me on Twitter at Cudmore Colin. I also co-host a podcast with my co-host Trevor Shackles. You can find us. We're called the Cost Per Point Cast, based off of the infamous Melnyk quote. You can also follow that podcast on Twitter at CP Pointcast. I write all my articles on silver7sens.com. Look out for an article tomorrow morning, and we're also recording an episode tonight for the podcast, so look forward to that too.
That for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Of course, and appreciate you coming here, Colin. Before I wrap it up, I want to let everyone know I'm not going to be able to upload for July 1st. I'll probably be able to do that. Probably have a video once a week during the summer. I will be gone. Starting tomorrow, I'll be on the internet. I'll be able to tweet and stuff, but videos won't be coming out. So I'll probably have a free agency update a week after July 1st as well. Please check out Sens Talk _ it's their Twitter account. All the other links are in the description below. Please check out our sponsor, SeatGeek.com, or download the App Store. Use the promo code SensTalks to $20 off your first purchase. Once again, Colin, thank you for joining us. Hope everyone here, ladies and gentlemen, enjoyed the show. And once again, good luck. Welcome to Ottawa, to all those draft picks that we discussed. And you know what? Hopefully, I'm hoping Colin and I are wrong. I'd love if you proved us wrong. Please prove us wrong. And welcome to the Senators organization. So, Colin, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night. Everyone, have a great night. Thank you.
All right, later. Thanks again.